Uh, Edmond Andrew Harjo.
Harjo. Okay, today is August 26, 1983, and this is Joe Todd and Judith Michener with an interview with Edmond Andrew Harjo. Mr. Harjo, where were you born?
I was born in Maud, Oklahoma, out here.
And when's your birthday?
November 24, 1924.
1924. Who was your father?
Tony Harjo.
Was he from Maud?
No, he was from Konawa.
Konawa. And who was your mother?
Yana.
I'm sorry?
Yana.
Yana.
Y-A-N-A-H.
What was her maiden name?
Grant.
Grant. And where was she from?
She was from Maud.
Maud.
Uh-huh.
Okay. What kind of work did your father do?
He was a farmer. And my mother was just a regular old housekeeper, raised us.
Andy, I remember one time when you were talking to me about the origin of the name Harjo.
Uh-huh.
Would you tell me that story again?
How it was originated, the Harjo cheese. Uh-huh. Well, I'll make the story short, but anyway, the story goes like, it was originated done. My ancestors are from Florida, and while they were still there, and the country was free, and no war, nothing, and all at once something came up strange way by Spaniards had occupied, and the Seminoles did not know that land was already sold to the United States, and the Spaniards was occupying in that territory during that time, but they were still the Spaniards were still in that area, and they used to trade fur and wine. And the furs from the Seminoles, and the wine was from Spanish. This young man, he was short, but he had 3 sisters, and they were orphans. They were occupied themselves in a little house, a village or community, Chaki. Anytime when he goes off, why he always kind of come back staggering, but they didn't understand why, and it thought he was sick, but yet he carries the bottle. And the time when he comes back with that bottle, but no fur or no skin, and they found out that he was trading it off to some strange people. They called them Spaniards. The neighbors around in that area said, "Where is so and so?" He had his old name, but I never did catch the name. But he had his original name. But the neighbors called him Harjo. Where is Harjo? Because he's short, and they call him Little Drunk. And that's the reason why that Harjo that was originated. Because he comes home drunk all the time, and then the neighbors in that area, they were asking him what happened to him, or where is he, or where they can find him, But they called him Harjo, so his original name was forgotten, but he was named Harjo. The Seminole owns just Seminoles. They are Harjo. That's the original Harjo. And Creeks, they call them said Harjo. It means the same thing. It has the same meaning. It means drunk.
Andy told me this story quite a long time ago.
And I knew we had to have that story.
Okay. Did you know your grandparents?
Very little. I was still pretty young about my grandmother. I don't know too much of her, but my grandfather I know. I was about 10 or 11-year-old when he passed away.
Did they come on the Trail of Tears, your
No.
grandparents?
Oh yes, my grandfather did.
Did they ever talk about the trail, things that happened on it?
Yes, they're very sad stories that he used to relate to us, at evenings, summer evenings, our winter nights. He had a big fireplace. He makes it so comfortable to listen to those stories.
What was his name?
His name was Pasaki. Pas, P-O-S, Sa, S-A, Ki, K-E. Pasaki. Means clear it. Clear the way.
Where did he live?
He lives around Konawa.
Konawa.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember any of these stories that he told about the trail?
Well, the few incidents that what he remembered, he was a boy when he left, but we never know how old he was when he left Florida. He said that the one sad story was that this mother had 3 daughters, and they were hated to leave on account of their the girl's father remained back in the Everglades somewhere. He ran off, and but they've been seeing each other secretly. And why secretly? Because they were already in stockade, and she digged under the stockade where she can get under and then coming back in. And so that's where they meet, secretly. And all at once, without telling when they're going to leave, the soldiers came and got them, and they got them on the steamboat. And all the 3 girls, they got on the boat, they were coming towards New Orleans. And she knew that he's supposed to be there at a certain time. Of course, they didn't tell the time, but like they tell by the sun, and it was about that time. And she got pretty nervous and said that, well, I know I'm supposed to meet my husband, and he's supposed to bring me some fruit, oranges. And here we are starving, and we are hungry, and my girls don't have anything to eat. And she started crying. Then she got up and walked around on the deck, and the soldiers, they knew, and they pointed a gun at her. They told her to sit down. And of course she couldn't understand the English. And there's a black man there, he translated for her to sit down. And so she did, but she was crying. And all at once, she leaped and dived into the water, and she never come out again. She just committed suicide. And that's the sad story part that he told us one time. And then why he told us that story is never, if you are really nervous or frightened, don't overdo it. Be calm. Always stay calm. That's why he told us to be calm. If you get so angry or you really get so nervous, just calm yourself down and just be patient. Things will work out, That's what he told us. And in psychology, you have that in school, and that's pretty good, He knows little, even though he never went to school, but he told us how to be, you know. That's very good. And that's how I remembered the story very well.
So your grandfather came by boat from Florida to New
Yes,
Orleans?
right. To New Orleans, to Fort Smith, Fort Smith. And then to Fort Smith to Fort Gibson. That's by Muskogee.
Yeah.
And
How
that's
did
where
did they come by wagon or on foot?
they come on by foot.
By foot.
Yes, They walked from New Orleans to all the way to, and that's why they call it Trail of Tears. They have to join the other tribes, you know, like Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Cherokees. They were still coming towards Oklahoma. And little at a time, they had groups and groups, you know. They didn't take all the whole group of them. They were separated, you know. At a time when they grouped them up, well, they know that they can go take them towards west. They never did, well, they weren't offered to ride or anything. They walked. A lot of them died on the way.
Yeah. How many were in each group? How large was the group?
Well, that I don't know. But the way he talked it, they were quite a few, but several of them died on the way.
How many, what part of Florida did they leave by boat?
Well, they were run along the, they call it Clear Spring, and I was imagining that, I think that they were by along Silver Spring, because they said water was so clear and they could see themselves, but that water was so cold, and they could dive in there and they could see themselves. And that's the only place that I went all over that, and you know, during the when I took my trip there in Florida, and but my grandmother, my great aunt, she was right on the bank of Okeechobee.
Andy, you told me once the story of the word Konawa, I believe it's Konawa, and what the word means.
Oh, that Konawa means it's the beads. You hear so many different tales about that, but Konawa means corner. It is a corner of the Seminole County, but the original is why they call it Konawa is Konawa, means beads. This lady, her grandmother gave her a string of beads, and they were leaving the Florida. When they were leaving, they took everything. They made little bundles, you know, they clothes, whatever they had, you know. They were coming after they got captured, you know, and the grandmother was just too old to travel, and she knew that she'll die sooner or later, you know. She'd rather just stay. But naturally, they were very, they didn't want to leave her, but she was just too old. And they know that she can travel. She'd just rather die there, you know. And, but they hated. And the youngest one, they said, well, in remembrance of me, just wear this in a time when you feel your beads, and just think about me, that you left me here. Always remember me. And she tied that string on her neck, you know, just this little girl. And of course she grew up, and she always never took that string, the beads of string off her neck, you know, she never did. But of course the strings got old and rotten, you know, it fell off. And next morning they were camping around in that area. They were fishing around South Canadian, you know. And the whole band of the Seminoles were there in that area. That was, they said there used to be a good fishing hole there. And that's why they were there. And so one night she missed her beads, and quite a few had been misplaced, and she must have lost them somewhere, and she was really unhappy about that. And of course the girls, some others, you know, helped her, and she found a few of them, but yet she has to have more. And she wouldn't forget it. I don't know how many miles she had to travel to her home back there. And she was really upset about it. So she got to go back over there and keep looking for it. A lot of times they saw her on the road, or sometimes she'd be walking, or sometimes she'd have her friends with her. And the people begin to notice why she's on the road. Is, have you found the bead? Or have you got all your beads gathered? Or are you going to look for the beads? You know, all that different kind of questions. And that's the reason why Konawa was named after, because that's very important in that area where she lost her beads.
What was her name?
Her name was, it's an Indian name, Wakomija. Wak, W-A-C, Ko, K-O, Mi, M-W-E, Ja, C-H-A. Does it sound like, is that the way it sounds to you? I did say that in English.
Yeah.
That's an English sound.
Yeah.
It would be spelled different if it's Creek or Seminole.
How many Seminoles came from Florida?
How many?
Any idea?
I don't. I really don't. But according to the statistics that we had back in 1889, it says 515.
Did many Seminoles bring slaves with them?
They never owned slaves. That's one thing that is, well, a lot of slaves ran into, anytime when they escape from their owners, they migrate into where the Seminoles are. And they made friends so easy. Because they were neutral people like, Seminoles were. They didn't know anything about slaves. And that's the reason why that they learned the dialects fast, and also that Seminoles would like to have someone that speaks English, so they can translate for them. So they make use out of them. And of course, some of them intermarried too. But they never owned slaves.
As a child, what kind of chores did you do in the farm?
What kind of? Well, I was in white community all my life, and I have several white neighbors. And it looks like my parents had trained me as one of them, like they are. This little neighbor of mine, his name was J.T. And I noticed every evening he has to gather the eggs, feed the pigs, chickens, and they made me do the same thing. I have to drive the cows back to be milked, and I have to, on Saturdays, if my father's going to plow, I have to go and get the team. It's just like you would at home, I had to feed my dog, and it wasn't nobody's chore. It has to be mine because it's my dog, When I was little, well, he said, are you going to take care of it? And I said, yes, all right, you do that. And if I don't, they're going to give that dog away, so I didn't want that. So I had to feed my dog. So we had a family dog all along.
Where'd you start school, Andy?
Where did I start?
Yeah.
Well, a little country school, right, about a quarter of a mile from where we live.
You know the name of it?
Central School.
Central School.
No, I take it back. It was Holly Grove.
Holly Grove?
Holly Grove. It's a little white
Holly
school
Grove.
with a bell on it. I
With
remember.
a bell.
Yes,
How long did you go there, Andy?
Well, I went first grade to the third, and they call it consolidated, and then they transfer us to the Central School. They built a big, huge country school with high school and from K through 12. And that's where
And that's where you graduated?
Yes, that's where I graduated.
From Central School.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and where did you go after that?
From there, let me see, I graduated in the 35. Then I started school at, no, first I went drawings, business school.
Uh-huh.
And I went about 2 months. And business wasn't and yet I wanted to do something else, was music. And music was really took hold of me. And well, maybe I'm off the subject, but
No,
anyway,
no,
the
no.
music
No,
comes
you're
back,
not.
you
Go
know.
right ahead.
Because my mother was, she wasn't an extraordinary pianist, but she knows a little bit about music. And that's where she started me off. And I didn't know that I was a lover of music. And I tried to be something else, but music kept coming back. Then I wanted to go to conservatory school in Chicago at that time. Well, of course, the war broke out, and then I volunteered in the service, and I served in 4 years and a half. And when I came out, well, then I went to OCU, and I went full-fledged there in music, majored in music.
Did you take piano lessons when you were small?
Yes,
Your mother had you take piano lessons?
Yes,
Who was your teacher, or where did you take them?
Well, I right there at the same school, the Central School.
Oh, they taught you at the school?
Yes, Mrs. Robertson was my teacher.
Mrs. Robertson? Oh.
Yeah, she was my teacher there.
That's interesting. My grandmother's family name is Robertson.
Oh,
Yeah. Just curious.
Her name is Ida Robertson.
Ida
Lawrence
Robertson.
Robertson, I don't think they never had children.
They might have been some
No,
distant
yeah,
cousins or
right,
something, who knows. I want to ask you something before we get on into your music career, which we're definitely going to get into. I want to ask you, we talked several times about the history of the Seminole, and you explained to me, told me the story about the origin of the Seminole people, the upper creeks and the lower creeks and all that. Could you tell me that again?
The original, the Seminole, means people that went away or strayed away from the others. And we are Muskogean people. And Creek. Originally we were Creeks. And of course my ancestors were all up in the Georgia and up in Alabama, up in that area, during that time before they migrated to Florida. And they used to have what they call Lower Creek and Upper Creek. Upper Creek are the ones that the Appalachian Mountains, you know how they are, they're in the eastern part. They're high mountains. And the and I'm going to
Are you enlarging on that, making a different edition?
yes, different edition.
I'm going to bring all those and show them to you, because he's got language books too, but he did this book on the Seminole patchwork designs and the meanings of them and all that. Anyway, now, go ahead. You were talking about it's on.
Oh, it's on. Oh, okay. All right. There are two different, they're same tribe, but some were on the on top of the hill, and some were down below. And the ones that are on the hill, that's where they get the most game, like deer or squirrel, rabbits, whatever. And down below, they were the corn growers and vegetable growers. In other words, they had squash, beans, and tobacco and corn. And these items, they were given to them by the explorers and Jesuits, the Catholic, whatever, who they were. And they were French explorers coming here in that area. They were kind of widely spread they go to certain different areas, lecturing or teaching or Christianizing the Indians. You know, that's why they were widely spread. They came way up to the eastern part where they are located. So that's where they get those corn, and they give them padres. The Seminole might have the Creeks, they might have padres, or they might have a certain skin that they made out of, or maybe they might have bows, or they might have arrows, and that's where they were exchanging. That's why they got all the beans, and squash, and what have you. You know, that's where they got it. And then one time there was a chief, and he also to be Yahola. He had two sons. One was very cruel, and the other one was very kind. And the one that was very kind, he intermarried to the lower creek. And he was upper, but she was from the, and so he came down, and but they found that he was very kind, and they liked him. But he was a chief's son. But yeah, everybody liked him, you know. And then rumors started, and up there, well, they kind of liked him because they don't want this. But this son, I'll never get their names. That's another strange thing. I wish I knew their names. But this cruel one, he just liked to order people around, and he made a stop going down and go down to the where they're raising vegetables, and they wanted up there, and said, no, you can't go down there and get it. And then these people, they want some meat, they can go up there and get it, you know. And that's how strict he was, and even that they didn't like it. They didn't like him at all, and that just keeps on going until this chief died out. And sure enough, this cruel one just elected himself as a chief. And that's where the disbanding came along. And this group here, up there in the upper creek, they decided to go off in little groups. They took off and they went into way down south, but they didn't know where they were going. But anyway, they went into Florida. And this other group, they joined in, and they went. And that's where the upper creek and the lower creek was originated. And then they got into Florida, into the chief, the cruel one, says, you go after them and bring them back. So they went on, but they never could find them because they were well hidden. They just keep on going deeper into the south, and that's why he put the curse on them by saying they are straightaway or people that run away from their own tribe, and that's why they call it Seminole. Seminole means people that go straight away or the outskirts.
Thank you. I've always thought that was an extremely interesting story, you know, and I wanted to get that on tape. Andy, did any of your family, were they involved in World War I, your dad or any of your...
My father was.
He was?
Yes,
Where did they send him? And...
Well, he went to Forest of France. And of course, of course they went into Austria too, you know, but he was, the outfit that he was with, his 20th, he had to do with a team. You know, they used to, the team holds the cannon.
Oh, artillery.
Artillery, yeah.
And he was in an artillery company.
Yeah, he was in the caissons.
28th.
The caissons.
Caissons, yeah, that's right.
The 28th.
28th company, I guess, or battery, whatever they call it.
How long was
And
he in?
Company C.
Company C, the 28th.
A year and a half.
When did he go in?
I think he left about, not too long ago. I looked in the old record book. I think that was about in the August.
How did the Depression affect you and your family
Depression?
in the 30s?
I don't know too much about because at that time, well, that was back in the 30s. And my grandfather owns 160 acres around Konawa. And there was a big booming time then, oil wells.
Yeah.
And that's how we survived.
Okay.
And we don't know too much about it. Everybody else were having a hard time, and we got, yet we worked.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we worked because my parents, my father, I'm not bragging, but anyway, my father says, well, you got to work by the sweat of your brow. If anything, don't expect anything handout. Work for it. That's what he used to tell me all the time. And so we had to work. Yet we had to during the Depression, we had plenty of corn, and we had plenty of beans. We had plentiful everything.
Did you ever do any work in the oil fields?
No.
How many brothers and sisters did you have,
I
Andy?
had one brother. I lost him about a week ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Andy.
And I have two sisters.
One brother and two sisters. Okay. That was your sister that I talked to on the phone. I believe you said it was your sister.
Yes, Yes,
In Maud.
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Right.
What's her name?
Lois.
Lois.
Uh-huh.
Okay. We might sometime want to talk with her.
And then the other one lives in Moore, Fanny.
Fanny lives in Moore.
Yes.
Okay, Lois and Fanny.
You said you volunteered during World War II.
Yes,
What unit were you a part of?
I was in the Field Artillery, 195, headquarters section. They call it something else.
Battalion?
195 Field Artillery Battalion.
195th Battalion. Okay. What was your job?
What is my job? Clerk typist.
That's what you did with the artillery?
Yes,
Okay. Were you European theater or Pacific?
Yes, European theater.
Can you just tell us briefly what you did during the war, or what you saw, what happened?
Well, we sometimes they put us in the reconnaissance detail. Of course, the army says, not you, be on reconnaissance or be observers along with the infantry. And sometimes I had to go, and sometimes I communicate on a radio. And one interesting thing that happened one time that I heard this young man singing a church song under the apple orchard in France. That was about 3 or 4 days after the D-Day. It was Sunday afternoon. I took a stroll and I heard that song, and I wondered where it was coming from. It looks like it's just a dream, like, you know. And I inquired around and see who is singing that, you know. And they told me that, well, that chief over there sitting under that tree singing. Was singing a while ago. Is that what you mean? He said, yeah. I guess so. I heard an Indian song. Well, that's him. He just got through singing. So he's Creek and I'm Seminole, but we can communicate. And I asked him in my language, saying that, were you the one that's singing? He said, yes, I was. And he looked surprised. And he said, did you hear me? And I said, yes, I did hear you very clear. I thought I was imagining. Of course, I did say it in English, but, no, I was trying to sing because today has happened to be my wedding anniversary. And that's how my people were singing during that time. And about a month ago, I lost my wife. And that was sad, you know. And here I am, and alone. And I said, "No, you're not alone, and I'm with you now, so we both can communicate." And he felt better then, you know. And then by that time, somebody overheard our conversation. That was a captain in his area. And the captain walked up and says, we saluted him. We're standing there, they're so stiff, you know, kind of scared, like, you know. I said, are you two communicating? He said, yes. What tribe are you? He said, I'm Seminole. And they asked him, what tribe are you? Creek? He said, you mean you two understand each other? I said, yes. The same language. I said, that's interesting. And he said, what outfit do you belong? And I said, well, I told him where I was, you know. He said, I'll keep in touch. That's all he said, you know. Surely that was just it, you know. I had forgotten about it. Well, of course, we visited after he left, you know. And we visited this man, Thomas McIntosh, from Broken Arrow, south of Tulsa. Yeah. And we visited for a long time, and of course, I went back to my area. And about 3 or 4 days later, I got a telephone call from the company commander, battery commander, told me that they want you at this certain area. They said, you can talk the language. What do you mean by that? I said, well, there's another man that could understand the language, and that's the reason why we communicated. He heard us, and he asked me a few days ago that if we can't communicate. I said, well, we need that right now. So he was really happy about it, so he went with me. So that's how we got communicated on. We got all kind of information, but the Germans couldn't understand. That's one of the interesting things that we helped out.
The Germans broke all of our codes except the native languages.
Yeah, because they couldn't do it.
How long were you? Can you describe exactly how, or what would you communicate with the other man? You were speaking Seminole apparently on the radio.
What?
I mean, would you send messages back and forth? What kind of messages would you send?
Oh, you mean on the during that time?
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. Now, for instance, if they say, well, they're going to attack 300 hours. I mean, 0300, and they want the infantry to move back, and the artillery is going to use certain number or certain the serial number on the projectile. It could be high explosive or whatever, white phosphorus. See, all of that, it's been said to me in English, but not like you turn, it's radio is off. Okay, I got all that written out, and then I translate that into Creek, and I communicate back to Tom McIntosh, and then he turns around and tell the officer there that what they want to do. And here in between, the German will be right there in somewhere, listen to our conversation, but he doesn't know what we're talking about. That's the kind of information that we gave.
Were you the only two in that area?
Yes, they tried to find the others, but they couldn't find them.
What area was that? Was that France, Italy, or?
We went to France, to Germany.
Is Mr. McIntosh still living in
No,
Broken
he's
Arrow?
not. He died about 2 years ago.
Was he related to Todd and the family of the McIntoshes that were?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. How long were you in the service, did you say?
4 years and a half.
What did you do on VE Day?
During the VE Day, oh my gosh, that was the most well, I'm not a drinker, but I broke the rule that day. We went into the monastery, and we saw this beautiful monastery up in the, it's by Rhine River, and they moved us back, you know. We were about 400 or 500 miles. We were almost in Czechoslovakian border, but they moved us back because they knew that it's going to be VE Day, I guess, you know, and we didn't know. And why they moved us back was that Japanese was still going on, you know, Japan and still going on. And Tom McIntosh and I were going to learn the Japanese dialect. And they gave us a few lines, and we could break them up, and then we could almost read it. But we don't understand the meaning. Like che hoka, mean that's the sound. Che hoka means that is this it? That's what it means in Japanese. And the che hoka, but they said we said it plain, and that's the reason why they picked us and they brought us back to close to this monastery. And I'm the nature lover, and I like to do a lot of exploring, and I'm interested in scenery, and I heard about this, and I saw the pictures of the cathedrals and all of that, you know, and that was my best opportunity. I thought that would be best for me to take a walk up there, and quite a few were taking the stroll, so I went. And there's one place they didn't look, down in the cellar. Of course, it's dark, and we had a flashlight, and we went down in there, kind of spiral stairs, and then we found into, the door was locked, and there was about 8 of us guys went down there, you know, and they broke that hinges off, and what did we find? Wine. And that's where we brought it up. And so we told the others, and they all went down there and got it all. And I mean, they just cleaned that cellar up, you know. And that's where I was staggering. That was my VE Day. I really enjoyed that.
Did they ever send you to the Pacific, or did the war end?
No, the war ended. We were in Paris when the war ended. We were in school for learning the communication.
Did you go through a victory parade when you came back to the States?
No, they didn't have anything like that. It was already too old. We would, what they called, they separated by section, you know. If you served so many years, you know, that they got the best, I mean, they were more qualified to leave home for it, you know. That's how they...
Yeah, the point system?
Yeah, the point system,
Yeah,
that's right,
Okay, when you got out of the war, when you finished your service, did you go right directly to school, or did you do something in between the time you left the Army? And what'd you do when you got out of the service?
Well, my uncle had already passed away when I came back from the service. I was in service when he passed away, and of course I couldn't make it because we were right in the middle of it. And my aunt, she was all by herself, and she needed someone to kind of run and see her business on the farm. And she had cattle that needs to be sold or, you know, branded, whatever. I took care of that for her about a year, but my mind was still, and the GI Bill was still floating around, you know, and I should put that in use for that 4 years, you know. I hate to see come to a waste on my part, you know. I thought it deserved it, so I wanted to make use of it, so I went to OCU.
Did you make the decision immediately to go into music, or did you go into something else when you started school?
Music.
You went right into music?
Yes, right into music.
How long did you study?
Well,
music?
4 years there at OCU.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was a real struggle, but anyway, I made it.
Did you study music anywhere else? Did you go to school where?
Well, I went to Rochester, New York, School of Music there for 2 years.
Now, during the time that you were going to school here at OCU. You were, I know, preparing to go on the concert stage, which you did go on the concert stage. Did you do it while you were studying? When was the first time that
Well,
you made
my
it?
last year, when I was working on my MAT, a Master of Teaching, Master of Art of Teaching, at OCU, I met Robert Kennedy. That was before he was assassinated, you know, at OIO, Oklahoma Indian Opportunity. They were having a gathering at OU, and that was in '74, I believe it was. And no, it was later than that, wasn't it? When he, well, anyway, it was in '70s, early '70s, before Robert. He was our principal speaker, and I was on the program to play the number, and of course, I performed, and then right after we got through our performance and the meal served and all that, and they had reception for him. And afterwards, he preferred that way. We want to have reception for him first, you know, but he'd rather have afterwards, you know. And we shook hands with him, and then he took hold of my hand and said, "Are you the young man that just played a while ago?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, will you come to my house?" And I thought, surely it's not here in Oklahoma. When he said, "Come to my house," or he didn't say home, but he said my house. And I said, "Sir, where's your house?" I said, and I said, "Hyannisport. That's in New York. And will you come to me? And I want you to, I want my mother to hear you. We'll make all the necessary arrangement for you, you know." I said, "I'd be happy of it, you know. I'd be glad to, you know." And I thought that was just going to be gone and forgotten. Maybe just a little pep talk. I don't know why I had that kind of feeling. And, well, sure enough, I got the plane fare. And I didn't spend a quarter or anything. I just took my trip to Hyannisport. I entertained there. They said 500 people. They said, but we might have about 100 or 300 people, you know. Looks like 1,000 to me when they came over at Hyannisport.
So you played for Rose Kennedy?
Yes, And at very last, she said, their father was still living in a wheelchair. They brought him down, and he was paralyzed. He couldn't speak plainly, but they figured out they want me to play "My Wild Irish Rose," dedicated to his wife. So I played, and he tried to do it, but of course his hand was already, you know. And I was really, that was really touchy.
Who was your professor at OCU?
Clarence Berg, Dean Berg. And his assistant professor was William Finley.
What years did you attend OCU?
What years did I attend? Starting the 50 to, then after I finished, then I went to teach in New Mexico. And I taught in elementary. And of course I teach music right along. And then came back and started off my MAT there at OCU and graduated in '72.
You were in education along with music at
Right.
that time.
Uh-huh.
You were actually preparing to be a teacher. But I do,
Music
that's right.
always.
But you were always, but you talked to me one time about appearing with some orchestras. You know, you went to Europe. That's what you told me.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and tell me about that. Tell me, where did you go when you first went? When did you go?
My first, I belong to Sigma Phi Mu. I belong to National Music Fraternity. And each year we always have a meeting. And we are due always been going up, and we pay our dues all along. And as long as if you're paying your dues, well, naturally you are automatically a member. And I've been keeping up my dues, you know. And they've been assisting a lot of blind children that wants to learn to play the piano, or handicapped, you know. But all at once they said, well, we ought to do something new or something different, you know. They sit there quiet for a long, long time, and somebody suggested, why don't we send Andy overseas? I don't think the Indians has never had went to overseas, you know, to playing or performing. And it looks like the Andy's the only one that shows with this music. We never heard any other tribe ever present. And we got him in our midst right here. And they told me to walk out, so I went out. They must have discussed. And then I came back. Surely I wasn't going, I thought too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I always think opposite. And then I went back in. And then while I sat down, while this friend of mine shook hands with me, and Andy, congratulations. So what did I do? He said, you're going. Going where? Shh, you know. So he got up and said, well, Andy, we want to ask you a question. The Mozart Festival is coming up in Austria, in Salzburg, Austria. Have you ever heard about it? I said, yes. I've been there during the war. I said, that's a beautiful place. I said, would you like to go there? I said, oh, of course I'd like to go, you know. Of course they all laughed, you know. And so that's how I went to Mozart Festival. And they were having competing. You can hear all kind of music by Mozart everywhere. They were competing. But nobody compete against me, because I'm the only Indian, and there are other pianists in the whole world. There are others, maybe better. I know they were, but I was automatically gave me a silver medal, because I was the only Indian that ever performed a Mozart festival.
What did you play,
And
Andy?
I played the concerto in D minor by Mozart in second movement.
What year was that?
What did I play?
What year?
Oh, what year? Oh, that was back in 70. That was in 76.
What was the next appearance?
And my next appearance was Moscow.
Oh, tell me about that.
Moscow was that was Tchaikovsky's music festival. That was in November.
Uh-huh.
And where I had just completed. You have to excuse my English. I just completed my Tchaikovsky's in B flat minor in first movement, and they knew that at the Rochester people, they knew it, and a friend of mine is a conductor, and he was a professor there. He and I went to school at OCU, and he went on into Vienna and all that. You know, he came back, and now he's a member of the faculty there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went one summer, and I studied under him, and he helped me work out the concerto in B flat minor by Tchaikovsky, because I never studied too much in Russian music. It's very difficult, and that's the reason why I want to know and I want to learn. And I worked on that, you know, and it had just completed. And that was in that whole summer. I worked on nothing but B flat concerto. Okay, and then I came home and keep working on it, and just keep pounding it away. And then Dienberg is retired, but yet he can give me a criticism, and then he can direct me, and he can guide me, and he can help me on my fingering, you know. And I keep going to him. And then our next June, the next following year, June, we had another meeting at Columbus, Ohio, by Sigma Phi Mu. And they knew that I had completed. They knew that I'd been studying right along. And I played a few score before this friend of mine, Dr. Neese. And I called him Rick, but anyway, I played for him a few scores and said, "You're doing good." I said, "I'm going to speak to them about sending you to Moscow." I said, "Don't you dare." I said, "Well," I said, "suppose if I forget, because I'm too scared right now. I'm not too well used to it yet." He said, you will, you know. Well, okay, when they had a meeting, they just went on ahead and going to send me there. So I went.
Mhm.
I went in that conservatory in that building there, and there were 3 balconies. They were packed full of Russians. And they were screaming and hollering, whistling. And I made all the Russians stood up for me after my performance. And Khrushchev, and I shook hands with him. I don't know what all he said to me, but anyway, he gave me a big squeeze, bear hugging contest we ever had. I never was kissed by a man, but I did on both cheeks. He did to me.
Oh, that's wonderful, Andy. Well, how did you do in the competition, or was it a competition?
No, there's no competition.
It was just
there.
okay.
Uh-huh.
It was just a
They
festival.
They gave me another medal,
Uh-huh.
and it's a silver, gold
Uh-huh.
medal.
Oh,
But
how
it didn't say
nice.
anything about it. Didn't say anything about competition or
Oh.
anything like that.
It
It was
was
a medal.
just a nice gift.
You're right. Uh-huh.
Oh, how
Beautiful.
nice. Now,
And
where'd you go from there?
where'd I go from there? Then I went to England. No, I went to Cree Reservation. Queen Anne, is that the Queen Elizabeth's sister? She was going to be in
Princess Margaret.
Margaret. That's who she was. She was coming to Cree Reservation, and she was going to make a tour to Quebec, and also that she was going to pay a visit to the Cree Indians on the reservation. They had just completed a big dome of their ceremonial there on the reservation. They want to dedicate it, and they want Prince Margaret to be there to help them to christening or whatever. And this friend of mine knew they would like for me to come and present my music while she's there. And I was invited there, and I went, and I met Princess. And then she gave me an invitation to come to London if they could make arrangements. Then she did, and I went to play the Buckingham Palace. Is that it? Where they
Buckingham Palace?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Was it a command performance?
Well, it's more like a reception, like just a little party, tea party they call it.
In Buckingham Palace?
Mhm.
My goodness. What'd you play, Andy?
Well, I played Pathetique by Beethoven
Uh-huh.
and Mozart, and I played all the German music.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
the
played
Queen
Haydn.
and Prince Philip and
Yes, and their mother. Her mother.
the Queen Mother.
Yes,
She's neat.
yeah. Yes, and well, at
That's-
first they thought really well. For some reason, they said we have a room for me. I thought for sure they meant I didn't want there because I already had taken place, at the Royal Hotel in London, and they said they had a room, everything ready for me there at their own palace.
Are you ready for that?
Did you stay at Buckingham Palace?
No, I didn't. I told them that I already had the room.
I would.
And they said, you made a mistake. They said, I made a mistake. I should have.
You
It
should
put
have
down in the
stayed.
history. Yes.
Yes. You should have
I was
stayed,
just too
Andy.
nervous. I want to hurry up and get out of there.
Oh, how exciting. Now, where'd you go after that? What'd you do after that?
Where did I go from
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Where'd you appear after that?
Just here in the United States.
Well,
I never-
whereabouts here in the United States?
Well, I've never been to Texas or Oklahoma or anywhere else.
They should have
But
had
all,
you.
yes,
anyway.
they're all up in north.
Uh-huh.
Up in Connecticut,
Uh-huh.
Vermont,
Uh-huh.
and state of New York,
Uh-huh.
and of course the Indian gathering had in Washington D.C.
Uh-huh.
And I played there. That's, I guess I would call it concert, I guess, you know.
Uh-huh.
You still tour?
No, no, I haven't. They run out of money, they said. But they want to send me to Korea,
Uh-huh.
all the Far East. They want to send me to Korea first, Japan, and to Peking, China,
Mm-hmm.
to Manila,
Mm.
then back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they have in mind. I'll have to do a lot of practicing now because I'm getting up in that age too, you know. And
Yeah.
my finger,
Uh-huh.
it's this one here.
Uh-huh.
It's very weak, and then this one here. I can't do the trilling. It's just too weak. It's not coordinating. And it's one thing that I have to go to the doctor, you know. Every Tuesday I go there, and they give me rubber balls to squeeze.
Just to,
And then
Yeah,
practice my
strength back in your
scales
hands.
every,
How come you never played Oklahoma?
How come I don't play in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I never was asked.
Now, see, we don't appreciate our own. I told you this before. Made me very angry.
That'll be
Mhm.
rectified.
Mm-hmm. I told you. I've been talking about you, Andy. We need a new table.
That was not, I just pushed it back on.
Oh, okay.
Could you give me a little background of the, what's the name of the mission?
Makasuki. This one?
Right.
Makasuki. He
Mission.
was calling Mesakuki.
Mikasuki. It was a school. I don't remember what year it was built,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's back in 1800s, but early part 1800s. in other words. And then it closed down in 1931.
What does Makasuki mean, Andy?
Well, it means no ruler or no king.
Oh, yeah, I remember you told me that. Yeah.
What does it mean again?
No king or no ruler.
Out here, next to the parking lot is a stone pillar of some sort
Uh-huh.
that has a sign on it. Is that part of the old mission? Is there-
Yes, right. That's
What was
the end
that?
of the campus. That was the campus in that area
Yeah.
there.
What was that? What is that stone pillar? What was that? Is that a building there or?
Is it just, was it just?
Just there, they just put it there.
Now that you say that Makasuki means no ruler, I remember that you told me that that was the name they called the Seminole, the band of the Seminole that came to
That-
Oklahoma. Is that right?
No, the ones that remain into Everglades.
Oh, okay.
See, they captured Osceola, Osceola,
Mm-hmm.
and they captured all the rulers and all the chiefs and brought them to Oklahoma. And the ones that stayed and remained there are no ruler or there's no king or no chief. And they call it Inmikosigo. That's what it means. You could say that's Inmikosigo, means no ruler or no king or no chief. And, but of course, English sound, you just say Mikasuki means, it doesn't have no meaning. Mikasuki, well, I guess it's named like Ruth or Joe, you know, it's like that.
I
Because
see.
that's how it sounds,
Mhm.
you know. Well, Mikasuki is a sound. But I like E-N,
In
Mik,
Mik,
Go,
O,
Ko,
Go,
Si,
Si.
John Suman is our employee here.
I heard you had the wonderful voice.
When was this mission founded, the school?
That's the, let me find a definite date and I can call you. Uh-huh. We have a record and all of that. My mother's diary, we have that.
Oh, you do?
Uh-huh, we have the old record book, like, but she kept the diary. And,
Diary.
Okay,
an old
the
record
diary.
book.
The
Old
diary,
record
yeah,
book.
we'd like to look at that sometime, Andy.
It's kind
Is
of
that-
worn out, but.
All the good stuff is, but we'd love to see it sometime.
How much of the old Seminole culture still exists?
Old culture.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but,
It's really just fading away so fast.
Is there anything that the Seminoles still do that is a matter of a remnant of their culture from back, well, from anywhere, a remnant of their culture? Is there anything that they practice?
They're still observing,
Mhm.
like they do.
Right.
Well, the only thing that they still have is that stomp dance.
Uh-huh.
They call it a stomp dance, cream corn dance.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, this coming Saturday is the last stomp dance will be held out here somewhere, close to Peyton.
Why do they call it stomp dance, Andy?
Oh, well, they just.
Oh.
Yeah,
They just stomp.
around. Yeah.
are there any sacred ceremonies left?
No, no.
Some of the Seminole people, there is somebody that still practices the medicine, is there not?
Very few, we heard.
Well, I
Do you know
know.
of anyone that does?
That's one thing that we can't pinpoint in people. They're kind of sacred, very secret, not sacred, secret. And they laughed about it. And so-and-so, oh, I guess that so-and-so may know, you go to that person. Said, how should I know? They kind of give you that kind of answer. Or, who said I know? Said, who said that, who knows so-and-so, Said, well, that's what they told me. Said, well, they don't know what they're talking about. They put you back in the, in hanging, where to land.
Yeah.
They can't, it's very hard for you to pinpoint or that guy, maybe this George here knows how, or Mr. Smith here, it's not like that. It's pretty strange.
Do you play any instrument besides the piano?
That's the only instrument.
Okay. What degrees do you hold?
What degree? Well, bachelor and then MAT, that's all.
MAT. Where did you do your undergraduate work?
Back at OCU.
OCU.
Everything at OCU.
Okay. Then you went to Rochester, New York?
Yes,
Okay.
And I still need about 24 hours to complete for a doctorate there. And I wouldn't call that yet because I haven't worked on it.
Andy, let me ask you a question just for my own clarification, because I'm kind of thick-headed, but the use of the word Muskogee, you say the Seminole people are Muskogee, the Seminole and the Creek, you are all Muskogee?
Mm-hmm. Muskogee means musket holder. People that with muskets, because there were a lot of us Scottish and a lot of hunters and a lot of explorers used to come in that area, and they wanted skin. That's the only thing they could trade, the Indians, they didn't have anything, except maybe homemade padres, whatever, and skin. And then the explorers would like to have those skin. They're making jackets and boots and things like that, They have to trade And the muskets was very important, and they didn't know too much about this rifle or whatever. They showed them how to use it. And they were the Creeks were the first one had the muskets and the musket owners, and they called it Muscowalgi. That means Muscowalgi. That means musket owners, or they have muskets. They were that tribe, Creek. That's what Muskogee.
What, let me see, and I seem to remember you using the word, is it Hittichi?
Hitchiti?
Yeah, Hitchiti, that's it. What is that? That's the language?
That's the language. That's another dialect. And Miccosukee.
Miccosukee
They're using
and
Miccosukee don't have that's the Hitchiti people. Hitchiti people went into Florida, and then the great majority of them, Hitchiti people, stayed in Florida. That's why they kept that Hitchiti language, but they call it Miccosukee dialect.
Mhm.
It's not Miccosukee dialect. It's Hitchiti dialect.
Okay. Okay, now I remember you told me that, and I had it all scrambled in my head, and I couldn't get it straight. You went to Florida.
Yes.
When was the first time you went to Florida? What was your first?
My first
Your
time,
first visit.
that was in '73.
Okay, was that? We have some tapes in the archives that were done by Irving Pythman. Were you there at the time
Yes,
he was there? I thought so, because he's got your name
Yes,
on some of those tapes. And
I translated for him.
And I just, wanted to know if that was was that during the 70s or the first trip, or when was that you worked with him?
That was in the year of 1950.
Was it 8 or 7?
58 or 57 or 58. I was there during the summertime, and then he was happened to be there. And if it weren't for me, he would never get inside the reservation at all.
That's what I thought, Andy. That's what I thought.
He'll never get into inside of the reservation.
But we do have, he gave to the archives some of those tapes, Andy. If you're interested in those, we'd be
I'd like to
happy
hear
to.
it,
Sure, okay. I wanted to tell you we had them. There's several
Okay,
of them. About, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 tapes. There's many of them that, I'm sure you would be interested in.
You may have told us before, but why the dichotomy between the Creeks and the Seminoles? Why did they split?
Why did they split?
Was it one tribe originally?
Yes. See, they didn't. They weren't very happy with that chief. Remember that I was telling you about? Okay. See, they weren't too happy. So that's the reason why they split. Just one family at first. This family, Smith family, they didn't like that chief. They just said, well, let's just go away, They wanted secretly. All the relatives of Smith family, they moved. And then second family said, where did they go? They said, I don't know where they went, but they said, let's go up and meet with them. So maybe Brown family. See, they weren't too happy with that. They kind of split up. And the rest of them, well, great majority that remained with this cruel chief, they were the upper people.
Yeah, okay, right.
And they're the ones that are known as the Creeks today.
Yes.
What happened to Osceola?
What happened to Osceola? Well, according to the story and according to the legend, according to my grandfather, that he was pretty weak. He got kind of sickly all at once, and he called it a white man's disease. And so many soldiers were coming into the area, they spreading so many diphtheria, smallpox, not chickenpox, not smallpox, and there was something else he called. Anyway, there were 3 of them, and he got infected with that diphtheria, his throat, and his throat was. He used to scream. he used to give them a signal, and they have a certain way of hollering, and they knew it was him. And the echo just flows everywhere, you know. When he does that, well, they know that Osceola's somewhere, but he can't do that anymore. And he tried to tell some of the boys to do it, but they weren't. But he was the one, and he was kind of sickly. Then they started threatening about the migrating into West. Charlie E. Motley happened to be the first one that betrayed his own people that he accepted. He said, yes, I'll take my people to West. He didn't want that. Osceola says, no, we're not going to surrender to the white men. So right there in the council room, right there in the council campfire where they were sitting, took his rifle out and shot him right there. Because he betrayed our people. So next time whoever betrays our people like that, I'm going to give him the same thing. That's what he told the others. He didn't try to make them to scare from him. No, that wasn't the point. He was just he think he did the right thing because he shouldn't have done that. He should consult with the others. But he didn't do it. He just made his own mind taking his people to West, you know. And that's why the white people began to stir up, capturing a little group at a time. Yeah, so this man's in the way. So they didn't want him. So they voted. But Osceola says, well, they were going to do something else, you know, to him. They got their own laws. But only Osceola said, well, this is my answer. This is the only way we can get rid of him. Just take his rifle out and shot him right there. Then second, maybe about 3-4 times meeting, General Jessup came and he said, well, this is the way only thing that I can, this is the only way that I can give you my answer. He stabbed that, he took his dagger out and put a hole through that paper, agreement, whatever. So he walked back, and so he stepped back, and then the soldiers grabbed him and took him to they put him in chain right there and led him away. They'd never seen him. And of course, there were 3-4 leaders. They said, well, if you're going to take him, well, take me too, you know. 4 of them joined. They took him to St. Augustine. That's where, they don't know whether he died there, but they said his body, his grave is over in North Carolina. But why way up there? We never understand.
Woodrow Haney told me that while he was in prison, he called his #1 wife and asked her to bring a certain coat that he had or something. And he said goodbye to each of his family and laid down and died. That's what Mr. Haney told me. He said that he was captured and he just willed himself to die.
That's not what I heard. That's all right, too.
Yeah,
But have you heard that before? That version before?
No. No one knows how he died.
Yeah.
No one really knows
No
for
one
sure. That's very interesting.
Is there a creation story in the Seminole?
The creation story. The creation story is that the Okeechobee is the sacred water, and they think that the monastery is in the middle of the water. Someday it will come out. Someday it will come out and take us to the better place to live. And that's what they believed. And that's where more of the Seminoles were in that area. Of course, there were few in the back, you know. That's why I said my grandfather was probably grew up and raised around Silver Spring.
Mhm.
They were widely spread.
Yeah.
Andy, I know you know a lot of the legends and stories of the Seminole tribe. I don't want to run you ragged today, but if we could come back sometime and talk with you and get you to tell us those stories like you used to tell me down at the tribal office, all the little stories like you used to tell your kids in
Oh,
school,
yeah,
all the
uh-huh.
marvelous stories that you told me. We'd
Yes,
love to get those on tape to go along with your interview, all those
Uh-huh.
marvelous things.
Uh-huh.
If that would be all right with you, we'd like to do that.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yes, uh-huh.
And all what you know so much about the language and everything. We want it so that 500 years from today, somebody will take the tape and put it on and say, this is the Seminole Indians. This is their culture, their language, and the way they were
Mhm.
back 500 years ago.
Yeah.
We want to have that, and you know that. So I want to know about the pageant. Tell me about the pageant.
Oh, the pageant is it's, well, it started out with how, well, the narrator always started out with why the Seminoles went into Florida, and they would be coming in, and with their costumes on.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the second scene would be the scenery of how happy they were in a new home, the surroundings. The women would be cooking, and the men would be sitting there congregating about discussing about the hunts, and children would be playing. All of that, all at once. The war rumor started. The messenger comes in and tells the white man he's on the warpath. And they kind of disturbed. Okay, the third scene, the Osceola and his mother will be appearing when he was 4-year-old in the dark. And they stopped, and the little boy will be fed, and the little boy was tired. And so that's the third scene, and then the second scene will be the general council at war. They were discussing about war and who's going to be in charge, this group and that, and why. And then the fifth scene, that's where Charlie Iwatha gets shot. And the fourth will be the General Jessup. We'll be talking to Osceola about surrendering flag of truce, and he's going to stamp that paper or the letter or whatever. And then the fourth scene, they're going to send in the representatives coming to Oklahoma because they were much pressure that they just have to leave Florida. And they got the representative to come to Oklahoma, and they came to Oklahoma, and they went back and told their people how it was. And then the journey starts, the Trail of Tears, and they go across the states. Some will be falling, some will be, and will be carried on a litter, all different things, And then this daughter will be trying to run, escape, but of course there's no water there, so she's going to commit suicide in front of the audience and so different things like that.
Who wrote the script for
I
your?
did.
Andy wrote the script for the pageant. When are you?
No.
No. When is it? When it's the Seminole Nation
10th.
Days?
The 8th, starting the 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Where's it to be held?
Here.
Are you going to do it in the base of Ball Diamond like you did before?
Well, we're supposed to have
Right.
an amphitheater down here.
Oh, okay.
They're going to fix that for us.
Now you're gonna do the play all 3 nights,
No, this one, the
Which-
Saturday night.
which is
starting at
the
8.
10th.
Uh-huh.
the 10th.
8 o'clock.
Okay, at 8 o'clock, I'm gonna pass this on. The reason I'm asking you this, number one, of course, because I'm interested, but number two, there's a lady in Oklahoma City who has, teaches at a place, or at Dale City actually, at a school called Pleasant Hill, which is
Uh-huh.
they have coursework for advanced 5th graders. And I was telling her.
Several schools are coming down to watch it.
And I was telling her about it, and I
Oh,
wanted to
wow.
give her this information.
Oh, yes,
Now, do you have an admission charge, or?
No,
you know?
no.
Okay,
Just bring your lawn chairs and comfortable.
okay, bring lawn chairs,
Uh-huh.
okay.
And we're having, we're gonna feed people, barbecue,
Uh-huh.
just come, be here
She,
at 5.
She may be at 5?
Mhm.
Okay. She may
both can
call
come.
you.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Andy, we would like to come back and talk to you again sometime soon about the stories and the language, and get some of that on tape so we can have that. But for right now, we'd like to say thank you very much for allowing
You're
us
quite
to
welcome,
come and talk with you. It's been a real pleasure, and we're going to look forward to coming back to visit with you.
Oh, yes, If there's anything that I can help you with, well, let me know.
Sure
I'll
will.
try.
Thank
Or
you.
lead you to whoever. If I don't know the story, maybe I could find somebody that could. They said the fire was a very sacred, and I'm going to try to get hold of that man, that why it was so sacred. You know.
Andy's a searcher. He really looks into these things and talks to